Hare Krishna, Parampara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Hare Sri Sambhu Hare Sri Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayatiraye Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavadiyashiki. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, Text 65. Tenasya tadrisham rajan Lingino deha sambhavam Shradhat svananubhuto rito Shradhat svananubhuto rito Namana spashtu arhati.
Namana sprashtum arhati.
Namana sprashtum arhati.
Namana sprashtum arhati.
Tenasya tadrisham rajan.
Tenasya tadrisham rajan.
Lingino deha sambhavam.
Lingino deha sambhavam.
Shradat svananubhuto rito.
Shradat svananubhuto rito.
Namana sprashtum arhati.
Namana sprashtum arhati. Tenasya tadrisham rajam.
Tenasya tadrisham rajam.
Lingino deha sambhavam.
Lingino deha sambhavam.
Shradat svananubhuto rito.
Shradat svananubhuto rito.
Namana sprashtum arhati.
Namana sprashtum arhati. Tenasya tadrisham rajam.
Tenasya tadrisham rajam.
Lingino deha sambhavam.
Lingino deha sambhavam.
Shraddha svananubhuto rito.
Shraddha svananubhuto rito.
Namana sprashtum arhati.
Namana sprashtum arhati.
Vaishnavis. Tenasya tadrisham rajan. Lingino deha sambhavam. Shraddhat svananubhuto. Namana sprashtum arhati. Therefore, asya, of the living entity, tadrisham, like that, rajan, O king, linginaha, who has a subtle mental covering, deha sambhavam, produced in the previous body, shraddhatsva, accepted as fact, ananubhutaha, not perceived, artaha, a thing, na, never, manaha, in the mind, sprashtum, to manifest, arhati, is able. Translation, purport, by Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, my dear king, the living entity who has a subtle mental covering develops all kinds of thoughts and images because of his previous body. Take this from me as certain. There is no possibility of concocting anything mentally without having perceived it in the previous body. Purport. Krishna bahir mukha hana boga vanchakare nikatasta mayatare chapatiyadare prema vivarta. Actually, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the supreme enjoyer. When a living entity wants to imitate him, he is given a chance to satisfy his false desire to lord it over material nature. That is the beginning of his downfall. As long as he is within this material atmosphere, he has a subtle vehicle in the form of the mind, which is a stockpile of all kinds of material desires. Such desires become manifested in different bodily forms. Srila Narada Muni requests the king to accept this fact from him because Narada is an authority. The conclusion is that the mind is the storehouse of our past desires, and we have this present body due to our past desires. Similarly, whatever we desire in this present body will be expressed in a future body. Thus, the mind is the source of different kinds of bodies. In the mind, if the mind is purified by Krishna consciousness, one will naturally in the future get a body that is spiritual and full of Krishna consciousness. Such a body is our original form, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirms, Chidara Sarupahaya Krishna Nitya Das, Madhya 20:108. Every living entity is constitutionally an eternal servant of Krishna. If a person is engaged in devotional service of the Lord, he is to be considered a liberated soul, even in this life. This is confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami. Iha yasya harir dasye karmana manas gira nikila sva api avastashu jivan mukta savichyate. One who engages in the transcendental service of the Lord in body, mind and words is to be considered liberated in all conditions of material existence. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-287. The Krishna consciousness movement is based on this principle. We must teach people to absorb themselves always in the service of the Lord, because that position is the natural position. One who is always serving in the Lord is to be considered already liberated. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Mam cha yogya vicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunam samtityaitam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who always engages in spiritual activities of unalloyed devotional service at once transcends the modes of material nature and is elevated to the spiritual platform. The devotee is therefore above the three modes of material nature and is even transcendental to the Brahman platform. A Brahmana may be infected by the power, by the two baser modes, namely Rajaguna and Tamaguna. A pure devotee who is free from all material desires, experienced on the mental platform, and who is also free from empiric philosophical circulation or fruitive activities, is always above material conditioning and is always liberated. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Namo Bistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapatantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Therefore, my dear king, the living entity who has a subtle mental covering develops all kinds of thoughts and images because of his previous body. take this from me as certain. There is no possibility of concocting anything mentally without having perceived it in a previous body. Hare Krishna. So we are continuing the study of this section of the Bhagavatam, and this is basically here Narada Muni explains the mind's role in the soul's transmigration. We are in this section of hearing description of the transmigration of the soul from one body to the next. And in this shloka specifically, the role of the mind is explained in a very detailed way actually. And during this week we already had wonderful lectures making many important points on this topic. Yesterday, Rasa Shri Ram Prabhu gave this nice example of artificial intelligence. You know? How artificial intelligence can only intelligently create or recognize something which he has been first fed or like first teached. That's how computers work. It's the humans who program computers, and afterwards they can do amazing things. But first they need to get some input. And it's a nice example because the mind also, yes, the mind can be very creative, and we see that in dreams, that in dreams you can experience all kind of amazing things. But as is described here, the mind only, kind of can create something, concoct something, imagine something on the basis of its experiences. And here Narada Muni tells, take this from me as certain. This is fact. This is how it is. The word used here is shraddhatsva. Accept it as a fact. Have faith in what I'm saying. The mind, and of course, we understand the mind is like a storehouse. Prabhupada says here the storehouse of material desires. But the mind is like, in general, it's like a hard drive. Like how many? This the terabyte. You say tera? It's the largest. You have one hard drive. You can put all your videos, all your photos there, and store it, right? But the mind is such an amazing hard drive which stores all impressions that have ever been experienced in all the lives ever. And we know that the conditioned soul has gone through unlimited, since time immemorial, the conditioned soul has been traveling through the universe. Brahmananda Brahmite Konya Bhagavan. Like traveling up and down. We have and our senses constantly see and smell and touch, and so many impressions go into the mind, and every single impression is stored there in the mind. So in that sense, there is a lot of the mind has a lot of sources to come up with imagination and ideas because there is a lot of experiences. But still, that's the limitation. And the mind cannot kind of come up with some other ideas if it's not has experienced it. And if you think about this, it's interesting. We have these science fiction writers or fantasy writers who write amazing books about different worlds that are not existing. I don't know, Lord of the Rings, and Star Wars, or all this fantasy. If you take this literally, then someone who writes such fantasy stories, actually the mind can come up with these ideas only if he has experienced it in a previous body, which gives an indication that and of course it's not so difficult for us to understand, because we understand there's unlimited universes with unlimited planets and unlimited beings, So there are Gandharvas, there are Rakshasas, and all these living entities are there. So if someone writes some fantasy story with all kind of beings that are not known to humans, well, most probably they have experienced them in a previous body, and then from these memories they come up and bring these stories. Anyway, that's just a thought that came to my mind. I'm not saying that this is absolutely Shastric, but that would be my conclusion reading this. I mean, if this is a fact that the mind only can have some imagination from the basis of experience, then that should also be true. Now, the role of the mind in the reincarnation is very crucial, because one identifies with his gross body, then a living entity performs action, and he receives results of the action. And of course, the subtle body also, is formed in a certain way, and then by that action performed with a certain identity, he takes birth in another gross body. So, and that's why we can understand our previous life. Like one's action through the senses reveals one's chitta, one's consciousness, and that actually reveals one's position in previous life. And there's a saying: if you want to know your previous life, just look into the mirror. You look into the mirror, and then you understand your previous life. Because the way we look, the kind of body that we have, the kind of psychophysical nature that we have, is a result of our previous activities, previous lives. Right? We know at the end of life, in the moment of death, we remember, and the everything that comes together then builds the next gross body, like the subtle body then manifests in a gross body. So this body is a manifestation of our subtle body from previous life. So I leave it up to you to judge whether it was good or not. And then of course, if you want to know what is our future life, then what do we have to do? We have to see our present activities. The present activities, our present consciousness, our present activities certainly will form our next life. And that's why, of course, Prabhupada says here, that's why we should, if the mind is purified by Krishna consciousness, one will naturally in the future get a body that is spiritual and full of Krishna consciousness. So that's the whole principles of Krishna consciousness, that we want to fill our mind with Krishna as much as possible. And that's why we have the whole, that's why the whole day we are engaged in devotional service. The whole day we are busy, the whole morning program and then whole day service, and then we have all different festivals. So that all creates strong impression in the mind, and that will help us to be fully absorbed in Krishna, and then naturally we can get a spiritual body in the next life. So that's a very basic principle, but it's a very important one to always remember. That we have to be careful also what we let into our mind, what kind of... That's why devotees, serious devotees, they usually always try to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness, and they try to avoid mundane, like mundane music, mundane movies, mundane literature, because that also gives, again, impression into the mind. And so they try to absorb always in spiritual activity. Now, it happens so that I'm at the moment teaching Bhakti Vaibhav and at the VIHE online, and there we are in the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam, and it's exactly the same topic discussed there, which is practical. I don't have to prepare a lecture because I just say what I said yesterday.
Which chapter is this?
This is 6th chapter, text 1, chapter 1, and this is the conversation between Yamadutas and Vishnudutas and they exactly talk about the same subject matter. Because we know what is at the end of the 5th canto? What happened there? Someone remembers? Shukadev speaks about the hellish planets. And when Parikshit Maharaj hears about the description of the hellish planets, he becomes very concerned. And that's probably explains it's very natural, because Parikshit Maharaj is a great devotee and a Vaishnava is Paradukha-dukhi. He himself is completely happy and satisfied, but if he sees the sufferings of others, he becomes very concerned, and out of his compassion, Parikshit Maharaj is asking, how can these living entities be saved from hellish condition? And then, what is Shukadev Goswami saying? You should do atonement. Prayaschita. You do something bad, then you have to do something good to counteract it, according to scriptures like the Manasamhita. Right? Is this the right way to do? Yeah, that's the test, like the Shukadev tests Parikshit. And then Parikshit is not agreeing, because this is like the baiting of an elephant. The elephant takes a bath and comes out and again throws dust on his back. Because you do sinful activities, then you go to the church, you confess, you ask forgiveness, or you go to a Brahmin and he's doing some, you have to do some prayaschita. And then what happens? Then you do the same thing again. Why you do the same thing again? Because the desire for the sinful activity is still there in the heart. That's why you can't really counteract. It's not really working. I mean, you can counteract, but you will do it again, and that's why it's not really the solution for the problem. So then next, Shukadev Goswami says, okay, yes, I just wanted to test you. You're right, that's not working. That's why jnana is important. We have to, one has to develop knowledge, and by jnana, one understands the true nature of this material world and the true nature of the self. Then one will be able to destroy avidya, and one will be able to end this cycle of sinful reaction. And is this good enough? No. What is the problem with jnana?
It doesn't satisfy the self completely.
Doesn't satisfy the self completely, yes. Actually,
not burning the seeds of the sinful reaction.
Yeah, it's not completely. It's actually not completely destroying. The seed. Yeah, it's described like there is a, there may be bamboo and there is a forest fire and the bamboo is burned completely, but the root is still there. And in order to really uproot the desire for sinful activities, it requires something more powerful than even jnana, and that's bhakti. Because bhakti establishes us in our true identity, true position. And also with jnana, the problem is that, and Prabhupada explains this, the danger with jnana is that one starts to think that one has become Narayan, or one wants to become one with Brahman. Jnana is always the danger that's like the last snare of Maya, as Prabhupada says. Or that's another form of ignorance. You're full of knowledge, you're full of jnani, but still you have an ignorance that you think that you can become one with the Absolute. But only in bhakti, when you actually take your position as an eternal servant, as Prabhupada says in this shloka also, then you are actually properly situated. And then, of course, this famous shloka is cited there. Kechit kivalaya bhaktya vasudeva parayana agam dunvanti karshneya niharam iva baskaraha. Only a rare person who has adopted completely unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this simply by discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays. And this is a very beautiful shloka. This is 6.1.15, and it describes the power of bhakti. And Prabhupada explains, Kechit means some people, or very rare person. It's not many, no, not many, but those who are becoming devotees of the Lord. And then it says also, only by the slightest performance of devotional service can one destroy all sins. And that should emphasize the power of bhakti. It doesn't require that you have to be a pure devotee to remove all the sins, but even the slightest. And Prabhupada in the purport goes very much into detail, and he quotes Jiva Goswami, and Jiva Goswami describes 5 different categories of devotional service: pure devotional and not pure devotional, and then different categories of the different stages of devotion. I think it's from the Bhakti Sandarbha. And then Prabhupada says, but even the Abhasa Rupa, a slight glimpse of devotional service, is enough to remove all sins, all sinful reactions. And that's why the example is given. Even because fog can be quite a problem. You know, sometimes there's a lot of accidents on the highways if there's a dense fog, or sometimes even airplanes cannot start or land because there's so much fog, right? But if there's only a little sun rays, can remove the fog. Prabhupada explains. So that's the power of bhakti. And then in order to make the point of the power of bhakti, then Shukadev Goswami tells the story of Ajamil. And then we have the story of Ajamil. And in the story of Ajamil, of course, Ajamil was very sinful, and at the time of death he remembered Narayan, although actually he thinks of his little son, Narayan, although he's 88 years old, and he has a 3-year-old boy.
88?
88. He's 88 years old. Yeah, did a little research actually. I think Guinness Book of Records says that the oldest man is 92 years old who got a son. At least nowadays in today's world. And yeah, a man can actually can beget a woman even in up to the end. Like there's that. Of course, for a woman at some point there is kind of a limitation, but from the man's side, possible. But of course, Prabhupada makes the point, according to Vedic culture, at the age of 45, actually, you should, 45, latest by 50, sex life is over. That's the idea. Sex life has a certain, sex life is meant for grihastha ashram, family life. Okay, there is a sex life that plays a certain role, but then after 50, vanaprastha, you should kind of detach yourself, so that you can prepare for the higher purpose of life. But Ajamil was so sinful that even at the age of 80, I mean, if the son was 2-3 years old, it means age of 85 he still had sex life. So that shows how sinful he was. So naturally the Yamadutas were ready to take him, but then he was calling out his little son, which by chance happened to be named Narayan, so he was calling out Narayan. And the Vishnudutas immediately showed up. It's described that because Ajamil committed sins by his body, by his words, and by his minds, 3 Yamadutas came. But because he chanted the syllables Narayana, which are 4 syllables, 4 Vishnudutas came. So the Vishnudutas were majority, were more than the Yamadutas. Narayana. And it's described, of course, because for the 2-3 years that the little boy was there, the father was always calling, hey Narayan, Narayan, Narayan. So by that chanting of Narayan, he got purified. And also, as a young man, he was a Brahmana. He did worship Narayan. So that original bhakti again came up because he was chanting the name of Narayan. And so at the time of death he chanted that name. And somehow in a helpless condition, and therefore it was kind of without offenses. It was not motivated, it was very, from the heart, very helpless. And that's why the Vishnudutas took it as a calling out to Narayan. And they came to protect him. And then of course comes the whole discussion, because it described that Vishnudutas, Yamadutas, they were both a bit perplexed or surprised, like what was the astonishment of the Yamadutas? They were seeing like, these are very elevated personalities. They were asking, are you demigods, are you sub-demigods, or are you siddhas, perfected beings? You look so nice, but you don't behave so nice, because you stop us from our duty. You look nicely, but you don't behave nice, because we are the messengers of Yamaraj, and it's our duty to take the sinful people. So why do you stop us? Why you stop us from our service? So that was the bewilderment of the Yamadutas, how these nice people behave bad. And the Vishnudut on their side, they were surprised. They were surprised. If you are messengers of Yama, then how is it that you don't know the law of nature? How do you don't know? If someone chants the names of the Lord, he is freed from sin. So why do you still want to take him? And then therefore they started to have a debate. So the Vishnudutas told them, okay, if you are the messenger of Yamaraj, then please tell us, what is dharma, what is adharma, who is to be punished? And in that purport also Prabhupada makes a very nice point. He says that if someone is a dutta, Yamadutta, Vishnuduta, dutta means a messenger. If someone is a dutta, then one should know the mission of the master. And Prabhupada says, so we are also duttas, we are the messengers of whom? Of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of Krishna. So we are the devotees of the Lord. So then we also should know the mission of our master. And therefore we should study Shastra very seriously. Because, and Prabhupada says, in order to not be embarrassed when we preach. Like if you preach and present Krishna consciousness, and then someone asks you something you don't know, then you're embarrassed. So Prabhupada says, so all our students, they should every day study 1 or 2 hours a day. They should study my books, so that they can present this philosophy even to the most learned people. So that's a nice point that Prabhupada makes there. Yes, so the Vishnudutas, they challenge the Yamadutas, so please tell us, what is dharma, what is adharma? If you claim to be the messengers of Yamaraj, then please tell us. And then the Yamadutas start to speak. And what do they speak? They speak exactly the same thing as Narada Muni speaks in this section. They speak about the transmigration of the soul, and they speak about the role of the mind. I'll just read some shlokas. Then this way we get some more insight into this.
Which number?
This is 6149. Yadda yastamasa yukta upaste yaktam evahi navida purva aparam nashta janma smritistataha. As a sleeping person acts according to the body, manifested in his dreams, and accepts it to be himself, so one identifies with his present body, which he acquired because of his past religious or religious actions, and is unable to know his past or future lives. So this is of course an analogy that is given often. Throughout the Bhagavatam we have many shlokas that give the analogy of the dream. And I think Krishna Premarupa also spoke about it in his class. How if we have a dream, we experience something, and of course sometimes we have very pleasant dreams, and then when we wake up, oh my God, such a nice dream, I want to, we turn around and we hope that we can continue the same dream. Have you had this experience? Oh, now I wake up, let me sleep, I want to go back to the same dream. It was so nice. But sometimes we have a dream and we wake up like, like sweating, like, oh my God, it was only a dream, my God. But that's also there, So when we wake up, we realize it was only a dream. It was not factual. It was not reality. So imagine what happens if you die. What is your realization when you die? It's over. It's finished. What to do now? Like the whole life, we have such a strong identification with this body. That's me. That's me. And then we build up our whole empire. Our big house and career and family members and this and that. Then we die and everything is over. That's a similar situation. You say, okay, so now what? It's over, finish. And especially if we understand that we have done this for millions of times already. Like if you understand as a conditioned soul, we have gone through unlimited forms of life, and each time we are completely convinced that this is me, this is the most important thing I'm doing, now this is important, and then again we die and everything is over. So Prabhupada calls the whole samsara, calls it a nonsensical stage performance. It's a very nice term, a nonsensical stage performance. Like you have a stage, you go on a stage, you play a role, and then everyone's clapping, and then you go, maybe they clap, maybe they don't clap, maybe they throw tomatoes. But you perform, you make your show, and then you leave. And then the curtain closes and the show is over. And that happens all the time. But we take it so seriously. I want to do this in my life. In this life I want to do this, I want to do that, and that's me, don't you know who I am? And we take it so seriously. But actually it's just a nonsensical stage performance. And when do we wake up and end the whole thing? That's the question. When do we wake up and think, okay, I'm not this body, I'm not the person that I think I am, and it's not about just gratifying my senses. Because that's what the mind always is telling us. We are identifying with the body, and then the mind, the body has the senses, and the mind kind of drives us crazy to enjoy through the body with the senses. And we think that's the goal of life, without understanding that actually, there is a higher meaning. And also that we have done it so many times before and we have not become happy. And Prabhupada, in this purport to this text 49, says that a sane person should understand what was his past, what was his present, what will be his future. And Prabhupada says, it should be understood that a person who does not have Vedic knowledge always acts in ignorance of what he has done in the past, what he has done in the present, and how he will suffer in the future. He does not know. He's completely in darkness. Therefore, Vedic injunction is tamasima, don't remain in darkness, chodir gamaha, try to go to the light. So one should accept Vedic knowledge and then try to learn about his previous, present and past life. Prabhupada then says, a human being must be educated to understand his past life and how he can endeavor for better life in the future. There is even a book called Bhrigu Samhita, which reveals information to the astrological information about past, present and future life according to astrological calculation. Somehow or other one must be enlightened about his past, present and future. It's interesting, no? Prabhupada is promoting here past life regression. Somehow or other you need to know about your past. You have to know your past life. You have to know your present. You have to know your future. Of course, we could question, is Prabhupada really promoting that we should all go to a therapy and kind of try to find out our past lives? I mean, in some way Prabhupada says there is a book we should study. So in some way, and I think it's not about because sometimes this can be taken wrong in the sense of the fascination of who was I in my lost life. And usually it's because people are so bored with their life, they're so disappointed and bored about their life, that they hope, maybe at least in my past lives, I was something very special. I was Julius Caesar or Cleopatra or something. At least I can feel good about it, So they go to someone, like this crystal ball, and they pay 10 Swiss francs, and in your last life you were Elvis Presley. And they feel good about it. Of course, that's not what Prabhupada says here. But what Prabhupada says is, what happens if you actually understand about past life? What is the effect? And I had a personal experience when I went to these palm leaf libraries. I got to know something about past lives from there, which was interesting, I must admit. But the effect was that I got some realization. This life is also just another play, another drama. And it gave me a more deeper realization. Actually, I am a spiritual soul, and I've gone through so many lives. So that kind of realization is what Prabhupada is kind of talking about. We should understand that we have past life, present, future lives, so that we get some wake-up call. I think this is what Prabhupada really emphasizes. And another last thing that I wanted to also mention, which comes up in the next shloka, text 50, where Prabhupada makes another very powerful point, is that at the end of the day, we are alone on this journey. There it says, above the 5 senses of perception, the 5 working senses and the 5 objects of the senses is the mind, which is the 16th element. Above the mind is the 17th element, the soul, the living being, himself, who in cooperation with the other 16 enjoys the material world alone. The living being enjoys 3 kinds of situations, namely happy, distressful, and mixed. So we have the knowledge acquiring senses, we have the working senses, we have the 5 sense objects. This is 15. There is the mind, 16, and the soul is 17. Right? This is Sankhya, the different elements. But what Prabhupada says, the important word here in this shloka is, maybe it's in the next one, let me see. No? Alone, yes. Yes. The living entity has a body which is a very complicated combination of the material elements, and with this body he struggles alone, as indicated in this verse by the words ekas tu. For example, if one is struggling in the ocean, he must swim through it alone. Although many men and aquatics are swimming in the ocean, he must take care of himself, because no one else will help him. Therefore, this verse indicates that the 17th item, the soul, must work alone. Although he tries to create society, friendship and love, no one will be able to help him but Krishna. Therefore, his only concern should be how to satisfy Krishna. This is also what Krishna wants. Sarva dharma parityajam mam ekam sharanam vraja. So another very powerful point by Prabhupada. We are so much concerned about what other people think. We want to please everyone. And then we create this environment, my family, my friends, and then we depend so much on them. But at the end of the day, we came alone and we'll go alone, and no one will be able to help us, especially at the time of death, which is the crucial time when, there is a Bengali saying, I forgot but basically it says, your bhajan will be tested at the time of death. That's the test when your bhajan will be tested. Now we chant our rounds, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, we do our whatever we do. But it will be tested at the time of death. And that time we will be alone. And then no one will be there to help us. It is up to us. And in this regard, there is a powerful purport by Prabhupada. You can check, this is 1:1550. And this is in the first canto of the Bhagavad. This describes how the Yudhishthira and the brothers Pandavas, upon realizing that the Lord had wound up his passion on earth, they decided to retire timely. That's, I think, also the title of that chapter. Retiring timely. And then they leave. And what do? They just go. Text 50 says, Draupadi also saw that her husbands, without caring for her, were leaving home. She knew well about Lord Vasudeva Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Both she and Subhadra became absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and attained the same results as their husbands. So basically what happens here, there is 5 Pandavas. Draupadi is lucky that she has five heroes. The greatest hero of the world are the husbands of Draupadi. But at that time, they're just walking off to Himalaya. And they're not even turning back or say something, but they just go off. And Prabhupada takes this as an example. He says, when flying an airplane, one cannot take care of other planes. Everyone has to take care of his own plane. And if there is any danger, no other plane can help another in that condition. So Prabhupada says everyone has to fly his own plane at the end. No? Similarly, at the end of life, when one has to go back to Godhead, everyone has to take care of himself without help rendered by other. The help is, however, offered on the ground before flying in space. Like before the pilot, before the airplane takes off, there's a lot of support. There's a whole team, make sure there's enough fuel inside and everything gets ready, right? But once the plane is in the air, then the pilot is on its own. So similarly, the spiritual master, the father, the mother, the relatives, the husband, and others can all render help during one's lifetime, but while crossing the sea, like of material ocean, one has to take care of himself and utilize the instruction formerly received. Draupadi had 5 husbands, and no one asked Draupadi to come. Draupadi had to take care of herself without waiting for her great husbands. And because she was already trained, she at once took the concentration upon the lotus feet of Lord Vasudeva Krishna, personality of Godhead. So Draupadi was not like, oh my God, my great heroes, my husbands, they all leave me, I'm alone. But because she was trained, she understood, yes, my great husbands, I love them and they are my heroes, but actually my true friend is Krishna. And that's why I take shelter of Krishna immediately. And that's what Prabhupada says. Therefore, his only concern should be how to satisfy Krishna, because that is what Krishna wants. At the end of the day, the relationship with Krishna is the only true relationship, and Krishna is the only true friend. And that's something we also should always remember. And time is up, but I think it's an important thing to also reflect that for our spiritual advancement, it's our responsibility to make progress in spiritual life. That's the meaning of we have to fly our own plane, right? It means that in order to make spiritual progress, it is entirely our responsibility, no one else. Not even the spiritual master. It's our responsibility to make spiritual progress, and that means that. And why is it so? Because we have a free will. Like we need to develop a desire to really go back to God, and we need to develop a desire to establish that relationship with Krishna. There is a saying, I don't know in English, man kann's, wie heißt es? Das Ross zum Wasser bringen, aber trinken muss es selber. They can all give support, but at the end, it's up to you. So I think that's an important, because sometimes people start then to blame the environment. Oh, it's Kali Yuga, it's so difficult. Or in this temple there is not enough devotees. Or I don't like the temple president. Or this ISKCON institution, it's not working. The problem is with ISKCON. So we blame everything else. But actually there is no impediment outside. There's no impediment for spiritual growth outside. Even if there is a lot of tribulation and adversity, actually, that can help us to grow spiritually. It is only inside. It's only us, how we take it. So that's the kind of responsibility that we have to take. Otherwise we won't really grow. So that's a powerful lesson that Prabhupada gives in this regard. And we can also understand from this section the role of the mind, because whatever the mind is absorbed, the desire which are created in the mind, and it will create our next body. Therefore, we are so fortunate that we got this amazing process of Krishna consciousness. So just by absorbing our mind in Krishna, then for sure, next life we either become devotees or even get our spiritual body and go back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyascha Patitanam Pavanebhyo
Krishna Premarupa Dasa ki Jai, Krishna Prabhupada ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai.
If you ask about the scientists, my experience that is one time I was in Mayapur, 1 month association. Actually, big people one day, today. My because of this condition of society, they cannot.
This kind of thing.
Yeah, 2 days. What is the conscience? We have the conscience and the subconscious here. This is what was discovered by Jung, Freud, Schopenhauer. The normal conscience is like iceberg. We have the outside, but the big concentration of consciousness is subconscious. How will I gather access to this subconscious? Today, I have a substance. I'm not apologizing for this, but with LSD, MST, but the thing is moment is that the religion has more increased more growing in Brazil because in Brazil is legal, is a religion. This substance, and with this substance, the people have access to this subconscious is based is made by the experiences from the previous life.
Because people get certain. They get an actual experience, they understand there must be something more than that.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry because I
understand.
need to go to my bookshop.
Okay.
Because I There's really a question.
But not so. You mentioned that we fly in our own plane, and I have a question because you said that our spiritual master, our family, friends, everyone can help us in this life. But finally, we have to make it pass as this exam alone.
Yes.
And I have a question according to spiritual master.
You can also help at that time, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there is many stories how probably feeling dream and actually probably helps. There's also prayers, please help me to remind. Of course, Krishna and Guru can help, but we shouldn't depend on that.
But what about general purpose or something like this? Our spiritual master will be, so in spiritual world it will be not with us.
Of course it will, of course it will. But the point is, if we don't want, the spirit master cannot liberate us.
Okay.
Like, you know, you have a pure devotee as a guru, and you're a disciple. But if you just don't want to become Krishna conscious, that guru cannot do it. Because that's a certain law of nature, free choice. If you don't follow the instruction, if you don't apply the process of Krishna consciousness, how the spirit master can deliver it? The spirit master can only deliver if you accept the medicine, or the doctor can only heal you if you take the medicine and follow the prescriptions. That's your own responsibility to do that. That's the point.
I have to follow, and then, but I want this point that about spiritual master, because every mentality we think about the qualities of spiritual master and about his service and everything, and you say that spiritual master can help, but
I'm not Prabhupada said, not me said, Prabhupada said. And Prabhupada used the word spiritual master, father, mother, husband. It's Prabhupada's word who says. But this is, this kind of statements, this is meant to make a certain point.
But if it's the point of this, we remember, for example, our spiritual master, but not Krishna.
Of course, that's also the Prabhupada's ask. If they don't remember Krishna, they remember Prabhupada, but this is also good. Spiritual master is always Krishna, so if you go to the spiritual master, you also got to.
Yeah, and also, the spiritual master is actually a manifestation of Krishna.
Yeah.
So,
sure. With this statement, we don't minimize the power of the spiritual master, we don't minimize the position of the spiritual master. We just emphasize
Our decision will be Krishna.
yes, and because the whole topic is with the role of the mind, it's an important point. Or also another point is what the Prabhupada says the price that we pay to get perfection, go back to focus, get lower, have a strong desire. If you don't have strong desire, what is the spiritual master doing with this? You're useless disciples, that's all. No problem, so many thousands of disciples, how can we get back to God? So many. So we have as a disciples, we have responsibility.
Krishna Premarupa
Hare Rama. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Krishna Krishna Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Bhagavad Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Krishna 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 Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Hare Rama, 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 Hare
Hare